Hey, everybody, welcome to today's Daily Distinction. So glad that you were here. Thank you for joining me. I just realized I have behind me, I just finished doing a keynote presentation for a group called NAM, and that stands for the National Association of Music Merchandisers. It's all of the music stores and musicians. And on after me today was I'm here, otherwise I would be there, because Lee Sklar and Russ Kunkel are putting on a program after mine. Lee Sklar is the greatest bass player perhaps that ever lived, with the possible exception of my pal Dana Williams. It's been a guest here on Daily Distinction. Russ Kunkel is one of the great studio drummers of all time. I would say the greatest drummer that ever lived, but we know that is either my friends Kenny Aronoff or Brian Proud. I'm sorry. I start off sharing my prejudice. So how's everybody doing today? Thank you for understanding the reason for me not being around yesterday. And I appreciate everybody understanding. Curtis, I always look forward to you checking in, because it is everywhere from a big city to Hooker, Oklahoma, which really makes me wonder, how did that town get its name? So, anyway, I love it when you check in, because it's hard telling where you are. So thank you for taking time to check in. Sonia, great to see you. Yes, it's Wednesday, your third favorite day of the week with your old pal. Yes, you're right. And I'm glad you're staying positive. Hey, how you doing? Brian, you're back. When you're not here, I always wonder where you are. So I appreciate it. Ken, great to see you. And Kit, thanks for the question. The reason, if you missed yesterday, I missed yesterday too. I just posted a short little recording, and Tammy has been under the weather. We're got appointments to do COVID testing yesterday, and part of the reason we jumped on that, and the only appointment they had available was at noon, so it meant I figured she would not love a live broadcast of a thing being stuck up her nose. So I did a remote. They told us before we got there that we would get the test results right away. And after we got there, we were informed that because of a shortage of a particular type of chemical needed to complete the test, and the big run on testing, particularly here in the Southwest, maybe you've read that Phoenix and the whole Arizona area is just, it's going like crazy, like wildfire there. So it's going to be a while before we get the testing back. So we don't know if Tammy has the flu, or if it is COVID-19, whatever it might be. We don't know. And we will find out. I got tested too, obviously, because of the exposure of being around her. So she is, not feeling her best, but it is not a situation yet, or hopefully at all, that requires anything like going to the hospital or anything like that. But she is certainly a sick puppy. She is dealing with some things now. So Scott, hey, I appreciate that. Thank you. And heck of a way to spend your anniversary, isn't it? Today is our wedding anniversary, our 14th wedding anniversary. And it's not a very romantic way to to spend that. Hey, Joe, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Bruce, how long did it take to get back? Oh, we just, I don't know quite what you mean by that, Bruce. I'm sorry, I'm missing that. We did not go home. Tammy went back to Fort Wayne, and we're thinking that maybe on the flight on the way home, she might have picked up a bug. Oh, for the speaking gig. Yeah. Matter of fact, I haven't even gotten out of the chair. I love giving speeches. There's no doubt about that, but I still can't kind of wrap my head around. I sit here and give the talk. I don't have to get on a plane. Don't have to go to a hotel. Don't have to do anything like that. So yeah, the commute was really short. So their motto, it's a location, not an occupation, of Hooker, Oklahoma. I love that. That is too good. Well, then, great to see you. I'm always glad when you're here, Pam. Yeah, every day's running together. I don't even know if there is a is a hump day anymore. You bet. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Thanks for the anniversary wishes. Yeah, thank you, Weldon. I appreciate that. Yeah, Kathy, man, it's just been crazy, hasn't it? And one of the things Tammy was trying to do was to get back and see her grandkids before our grandkids before it got any worse and all that. So and who you can get it anything from anywhere. So we'll wait and see what happens. But she's hanging in there. Thank you, Weldon. I appreciate that. Charles, hey man, thank you. My late friend Charles Tremendous Jones. Tremendous Jones was one of the top motivational speakers back in the late 60s, early 70s. And he was what, 6'9", 6'10", just this, but larger than life too. Not only a big guy, just the biggest personality. And one of the funny things that he did, it's one of those you had to know him, but it didn't matter, what number you said. He said, "Oh, you married man?" He talked, had a kind of talk like this. And you married man, Scott? Yeah, and it didn't matter what number you gave. It was just a game he played. You could say, "I've been married 14 years. 14. Oh, it's the worst." It doesn't matter. And he and his wife before Tremendous passed, gosh, I think they were married like 60 years or whatever. And what a fabulous guy. But Tammy and I laugh about him every anniversary. Is that what year is it? Oh, it's 14. Oh, it's the worst. It's so cool. Randall checking in from Cowtown. Yeah, I've followed that. I've read another article on that today. Should we change the name of Columbus, Ohio? And I lived in Columbus, Indiana for many years. So it's fascinating what's going on out there in the world today, isn't it? So hey, here's the question we want to tackle today. Why would a customer choose you instead of the competition? What is there about what you do, your business, or you as a salesperson, or you, whatever you do? What is it about what you do that would make a customer choose you instead of the competition? By the way, that's how we make choices, right? We make choices instead of something else, right? I go to Walmart instead of Target or Kohl's or whatever. I might choose that. So it could be a number of things. It could be lower prices there. It could be there's somebody at the checkout counter that I think is very friendly, and I want her or him to check me out. It could be that, I just like Walmart better than Target, or Target better than, whenever you do business someplace, you've made a choice to do business there as opposed to the competition. Right before I came on, I just ordered some groceries from Instacart to get them delivered because I got a lot of stuff going on. Tammy hadn't feeling well, as I said. And why did I choose one supermarket over the other? Because really, if you're not going, what difference does it make, right? I mean, I don't have to go to the closest one. I will go to if Instacart's bringing it, just get the best one. And why did I choose one over the other? One of the reasons, they got better produce, it seems like, right? So there's something about one or the other that drives you in a particular selection direction. So why you? Why would a customer choose you? And here's the problem. We often get it wrong in business. We do. We often get it wrong. And here's the reason why. Because we think it's about what we do. Now, if I'm choosing you because you got better produce than somebody else, there you go. But how do you prove that? How do you market that? I mean, if supermarket A says we have fresher produce, you can bet your bottom dollar the supermarket B is going to come back and say, no produce is fresher than ours. We have the biggest red apples. What do? You go out and get bigger red apples, right? It's so difficult. Why? Why would that? And Weldon, yeah, it's a great thing to say. Here's the challenge that we run into in the real world. we do business with us because we're honest. Well, you know, your competitor is going to come back and say, we're honest too. We're honester. Yeah, that's not a word. I just made that up. But we have more integrity than anybody. We're the best at what we do. Well, nobody claims, you know what, do business with us because we're the second best. The only example I can think of, and well, you make a great point, but the only example I can think of on if you're old enough to remember, Avis used to run a marketing campaign, say, we're number 2. And at that point, they were number 2 to Hertz. We try harder, right? We're going to try harder because we're number 2. We're going to try harder, which was one of the most brilliant advertising campaigns ever because it got you thinking about Avis, that they were really going to try harder because they're number 2. They want to be number 1, and they're going to try harder. So that's where we often get it wrong, is we think we're the best at what we do. But it doesn't prevent our competition from going to the marketplace saying that they're just as good or they're better. How do we fight that? And then we have this escalate. And then here's the other thing. You'll have some competitors that will make ridiculous, unsubstantiated, stupid claims. In my business of speaking, oh my gosh, I hadn't planned on talking about this, but I start and it's my hot button. In my business of speaking, I will see people claim they are the world's number 1. Who said? No, I mean, seriously. I have seen in the last week, I've seen 4 people claim America's number 1 motivational speaker, and none of those speakers were Tony Robbins. To claim that you are the world's number 1 authority or the number 1 whatever. Now, well, then here's the important point. It's okay to say we're the best. The New York Times called us the best, or these customers said we were the best, blah, blah, blah. And you list the name of the customers. But I see organizations out there and I mentioned this old line the other day. I'll say it again. And it's bad English, but it's a great line. He who doth not toot his own horn, his horn doth not get tooted. I mean, if you're not willing to tell your story, then your story probably isn't going to get told in the way that you want it to. So where we often get it wrong is that we think going to the market, and here's the thing, if you claim you're the world's number 1 or the nation's number 1 motivational speaker, right away, anybody with any sense knows you're a liar, because there is no survey. Now, if you said the Gallup poll surveyed 1,000 meeting planners or 1,000 people who attend motivational seminars, and John Doe ranked number 1, Tony Robbins number 2, right? A buddy of mine, Jerry, you'll know this one. Larry Winget, our great friend. There was a list that came out of the 50 top motivational speakers. Now, I didn't say of all time, 50 top motivational speakers who speak. And Larry was one of the 50. It might have been 25. And I have given him so much stuff about this. 3 of the people in the top 25 are dead. I mean, they're no longer with us. So they're not exactly like out there speaking anymore, which showed you how, and Larry's name was misspelled. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, but still, you can still put it out there. I've been listed as one of the top 25 of what I do by this, right? Am I one of the best salespeople that ever lived? Am I one of the best marketers that ever lived? No, but I am in the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame. You can say that. That's a qualification. But when we go to the marketplace and say we're the best without saying so-and-so said, then customers immediately sense that we're something's wrong. Yeah, remember that? 4 out of 5 dentists agree. Wouldn't you love to figure out who that one dentist is? Somebody had a funny commercial about that a while back, about the one dentist that didn't agree, went to sleep, or like a squirrel crawls up his pants leg or something. That's interesting. Hey, Jerry, there you go, because you mesh the way your customers want you to mesh. Yeah, you connect with them. And Sonia, I think I think what he's saying is not mesh in terms of the quality of your service, but mesh in terms of the experience that you create. What you create for the customer is what they want to be delivered, right? I mean, it's a fit in terms of what you're delivering and how you're delivering it, and that. So yeah, and that's the key. I mean, you have to. If you can't live up to your own standards, how do you expect to advance? You gotta grow your standards. Bruce, you hit it on the head. That's exactly right. If you say it's bragging, if your client says that it's a testimonial, and it's great. Testimonials and social proof is absolutely extraordinarily important. Larry doesn't motivate, he irritates you. Yeah, there you go. And how did they misspelled it? What funny, but it's funny. Every time somebody posts this, they act like they're the ones that thought of it. They'll call him Larry Wingnut, and then go ha ha ha, like it's been out there forever. Anyway, the point is we often get it wrong. Here's the other problem. You ready for this? It's scary. This one's really scary. For those of you who have employees, here's what's terrifying. Retail Marketing Institute did a study. They found out that 70% of frontline employees cannot answer the question, why should a customer do business at where you work as opposed to your competition? Now roll that one around in your head for a little bit. 70% of employees cannot adequately answer the question, why should a customer do business at the place that's signing my paycheck as opposed to the competition? That if the competition wins, I may lose my paycheck, but 70% of them can't even answer that question. And if your employees can't answer the question, how in the world do you expect your customers to be able to answer the question? So we all have some work to do inside our businesses as well as outside. Charles Surprise did it, and I had, but it's an amazing thing. I mean, yeah, and kid, yeah, it's probably a low estimate. We've got to teach, we got to educate. We have to train our own teams to understand what our advantages are. So here's the problem, right? I mean, maybe you don't know your advantage, so you can't teach it to your teams. Jeff, you're exactly right. Man, you got to sit them down, you got to educate them. I will bet, Jeff Weimer, my good friend, your employees know why they're better off to do business with you than any other plumbing contractor in your area. I would bet that figure is not right for your employees, but it's right for most of them, as those of us that do business know. I mean, that's the problem. And by the way, when it comes to employees, why would a prospective employee decide you're the place that they want to spend their time and their talent and their energy as opposed to going someplace else? Now, look, in a tight job market, and goodness only knows the economy has changed so drastically in this year. But there's a lot of good people out there. And as we talked about in a previous session about recasting, maybe recasting, retooling is something that you need to do. So why would they choose you? So I want you to back up for a second and think of this. What do people say after they've done business with you? Or what do you say after you've shopped or invested or done a business transaction someplace? What do you say? Because I can promise you, here's something nobody ever says. Nobody ever finishes doing business with you and says, man, I love them. They're exactly like everybody else. Or I mentioned today is my wedding anniversary, right? Can you imagine when I got down on bended knee and took Tammy's hand in mine and looked up in her eye and proposed marriage to her? Do you imagine I said, sweetie, would you marry me? You're exactly like every other woman I've ever dated. Yeah. We know I didn't say that, right? Because the answer was a yes. And if I'd have put it that way, it would, I would have been, I would have been in the running for the old Bachelor if they ever decide to do one of those, right? So nobody ever says, I love doing business with you because you're like everybody else I've ever done business with. In our personal relationships, we know that we don't getting involved, engaged, married, committed to somebody because they're exactly like everybody else. Charles, I think you're right. I think smaller companies do a better job of it. It's the old, you hit the nail on the head. It's the old cliche about turning the battleship, right? It's easier to turn the small boat than the battleship. And so how do you turn that big thing around if you're Costco, right? Although Costco does a pretty doggone good job of it from my experience. But yeah, I mean, smaller companies do a good job. Kid, great point. Too many managers can't answer that question, so they can't educate their people. You're exactly right. They don't understand this important part of the principle. And therefore, it's really tough to get other people to do so. Here's one of the other things that's interesting. When I keynoted the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgeons, I asked what was the most important aspect to differentiate their business. And literally, it was in the 90 percentile of the surgeons responded, because I'm such a good surgeon. Yeah, but the other 5 in town are saying they're as good or better than you. And no one says, come get a facelift from me because I'm adequate. I mean, yeah. So you've got to find something to differentiate, because here's the thing. We are not chosen for our similarities. We're chosen for our differences. We're chosen for our differences. Now, if a customer sees no difference between you and everybody else, then how do they differentiate? And the answer, of course, is price. There has to be some kind of differentiation. So if you're getting hammered all the time on price, to me, that indicates one really important thing, and that is they don't see enough of a difference between you and others. Think about the early days of General Motors. And for some of you, you'll remember this. For others, this will be a history lesson. But General Motors made a great decision, right? They're going to compete against Ford. So how do you do that? Where did the name General Motors, right? We said we're noticed for our differences. If something is general, it's not very specific. General Motors, General Electric, General Mills. What did they? Okay, so they decided to compete against themselves, right? We're going to have one line, Chevrolet, that has one price point. We're going to have another line, Cadillac, at the other end of the spectrum. We can get some pricing, some cost of manufacturing variables down, because we're buying, we could put it on the same chassis, or we could use some of the same parts, but we're going to differentiate them based on the pricing and the quality of the product, because, right? And so no one walks into a Cadillac dealership demanding the same price they get at a Chevrolet. They're different. Even though some of the aspects about them are the same, we know there's a difference between Cadillac and Chevrolet. We know there's a difference between Cadillac and Rolls-Royce. You're not chosen for your similarities. You're chosen for your differences. Now, I'm not saying that everything A to Z has to be different, right? I mean, whether it's a Rolls-Royce or a Fiat, it's a transportation method. It has 4 wheels. It has a steering on. I mean, there are many, many similarities. But you might choose a Fiat because, hey, it's small and I can pull it behind my motorhome, where you couldn't be pulling a Rolls-Royce behind, right? See what? But those differences are really critical in the selection process. Yeah. Charles, when I was 16 years old, I wanted a Chevy Vega so bad. Oh man. Yeah, exactly. You become more, and see, I think that's happening right now. Charles, I was going to get into that. I think right now customers are more sensitive to how you treat them than ever. Look, a lot of what we're seeing in the nation right now, for good and bad, is a result of this heightened sensitivity that we have because of the challenges that we're going through. And so one of the things that we need to do is to exploit our differences. My pal Larry that we were talking about earlier, one of the things he talks about is we have thought of exploit as being a negative term. Exploit's kind of like consequences. It's not positive or negative, it's how it's done. So to exploit something can mean you take advantage of it, or it could mean, take advantage of it. You could do that in a positive way, or you could do that in a negative way. Exploit is not necessarily a negative term. What it means here is, how do you take that area that makes you unique and leverage that into as much growth for your business as you possibly could? Okay, I didn't want a Chevy Vega. Man, I remember sitting with mom and dad, and I'd gone to the dealership. You know, I'd driven my '57 Ford to the Dobbins Chevrolet and got the catalog, and I showed them the catalog, and I was working 40 hours a week in high school. I could make the payments, and it kept me away from it. So that was it. Yeah, a vegan wagon. Oh, yeah, one of those Vega wagons. Oh, I get it. Well, then, yeah, absolutely. I thought they were, yeah, but I get it. So if the way that you get ahead is to exploit what makes you different, maybe you don't know what makes you different. So I want to suggest during this time, it's a great time to create something, to work on something. Because the important point to remember is we are not chosen for our similarities. There are certain points that have to be the same. Hey, I just did the NAMM talk right before this. Right, if I go in a music store and I'm looking for a set of drums, I'm not leaving with a bass guitar. Now, whether it's Ludwig or Gretsch or DW, or Slingerland, I mean, there are various, but they're going to have a snare drum and toms and that, and those things are going to be similar. So why would I pick Ludwig over Gretsch, or vice versa? Well, in part, why do you think they have these celebrity drummers? Because if somebody that you watch, if Kenny Aronoff plays Pearl, hey, maybe I ought to go play it. I mean, we watch those things. So anything that you could do to create that space is some of the most important things that you can do. Darcy, I'm going to share with my daughter how to differentiate. See, this was a book I was going to work on, and I'm really and part of it was I couldn't get the title right. I haven't talked about this publicly before. The title I was working on was Chosen, but that sounds too much like a religious book, and that was not the intent of this. But these same principles, and Darcy, I appreciate that you perceive this, because it's hard to. Why would you get chosen for a particular college? Here's one of the most important points, and this was going to be the opening chapter of the book. Let me know if you think I ought to write this or not. It's not necessarily a business book. I mean, it's the principle. Okay, so the opening chapter of the book was going to be this: everything that we want is currently controlled by somebody else. Everything that you want is currently controlled. So, in other words, if you want your daughter to get into, I don't know, I'll show my prejudice. If you want your daughter to get into High Point University, and your daughter wants to go to High Point University, and that they're going to have, and I'm making these numbers up, 100,000 applications, and they're going to pick 2,000 students to come. How do you get chosen? Well, see, that's what most parents don't understand, appreciate, is that a lot of them are going to have straight A's, and a lot of them are going to have great SAT scores. So you're not chosen for your similarities, because the similarity doesn't differentiate you from 8,000 other applicants. It's the differences. So how do you focus on that? Senator Richard Lugar picked me. He was a very distinguished and wonderful senator from Indiana. And going a couple minutes overtime. Hope you don't mind. We were so short yesterday. I'll a couple extra minutes today. So anyway, Senator Lugar asked me to be on the selection committee for the Naval Academy. So I was part of a small committee that chose who got to go to the Naval Academy. And it was an incredible experience in this. And yeah, Tim, I don't think we should wait to be chosen, but there are some things like applying for a job or, where you're going to go to college. That's what I'm talking about in this situation. For those things where someone else has control, like an admissions committee or a selection committee or those kinds of things. So how do we choose who got to go to the Naval Academy? Because we had people coming in. I remember my first committee meeting and this student came in and their GPA was like 4.6 or 4.8. And I'm like, I was trying to sniff to get close to 4. I didn't know you could get more than an A, but yeah, with what's going on with accelerated classes and advanced. Well, anyway, so we had this one student come in and it was like 4 point, whatever the ultimate number past 4 was she had. She had never made anything less than an A ever in her high school. She had a perfect SAT score. Perfect SAT. I didn't know you could get a perfect SAT. And we turned her down. She didn't get to go to the Naval Academy. And the reason we turned her down is, first of all, we had 4 others that year with the same qualifications. But she had 0 extracurricular activities. And the purpose of the Naval Academy is to develop officers. And there was nothing in her background, no student organizations, involvement in civic clubs, anything that would indicate leadership. She needed to go to MIT. She needed to go someplace like that, but she didn't need to be at the Naval Academy. In other words, she didn't create enough differentiation. And so what I'm suggesting to you is, what can you do to set yourself apart? Bruce, I hadn't thought of it. What a brilliant observation. Legally Blonde is based the whole thing about Elle creating a unique video to get into Harvard Law. Yeah, exactly. She did something that was unique. She did something that separated her from the rest. And Darcy, there you go. And great, look, it's not saying that there aren't standards. I mean, you've got to have great grades to get in. But great grades, as you say, are a dime a dozen. Darcy, it blew me away. The Los Angeles Times, not too long ago, was talking about the orchestra, the Los Angeles Philharmonic, was looking for violin players. And it said as they were searching for violin players for the orchestra, they were looking for unique appearance, unique presentation, unique style, because, and this was the quote, I will never forget, quote, virtuosos are a dime a dozen. Wouldn't you think you'd aspire to be a virtuoso? Being a virtuoso does not differentiate you anymore. Virtuosos are a dime a dozen. So, and Charles, yes, how do you become a better, more well-rounded person? Oh my gosh. She has 2 nonprofit. See, there you go. That's bingo. That's what we're talking about here. And by the way, I want to make certain I say this. It's not just about being different. You've heard me say it. It's the line I say over and over, and we'll continue to say it. If I slap every customer in the face, I'm different. They ain't ever coming back, but I'm different. What you're searching for is a meaningful way. So in other words, how do you tie in, those charitable organizations? I was on that selection committee, that admissions committee. I worked for my alma mater for a little over a year. And one of the things I realized is, okay, so if you come to a college with that, I'm also thinking who'd be great as a student ambassador to go out and help us with fundraising on college, who has in their DNA that they're going to be contributors as they become successful after they leave college. These are all things that a lot of folks don't think about, but it's a way to set yourself apart. That's how you get chosen. That's how you get selected. That's what this is all about. So when you ask the question, why would a customer choose you instead of the competition? You're also saying, how do I get selected in that type of process? Focus on what makes you stand out. Focus on what makes you distinctive. That's the key. Hey, thanks, everybody. I went quite a bit over time today, but I appreciate, gosh, everybody's hanging in there, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for your kind, happy anniversary wishes as well. That is certainly appreciated. I will pass along to Tammy, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, right here on our next Daily Distinction.